Hello, this is Franco Cabral, broadcasting from the Honest Liar podcast, a conversation around finding the inner liar within all of us and leveraging the truth to create expansion across all areas of your life. Today's topic is this: the impossible game. So as I am recording this podcast, I am in the middle of my trip to Hawaii with my wife. And we just had a very peaceful morning where I got the opportunity to share with my wife one of my weekly activities that I do to connect with myself spiritually. This is something that I was taught about a few months ago, and eventually I'll record a podcast to explain how this process works. But I call it my weekly meeting with the CEO of the universe or God or whatever higher power you believe in. This podcast is not about that, but in that meeting that I have, there's a section that I do every week where I sit down and meditate, and then I reflect on things that I'm thankful for this week, and I journal about all the things that I'm grateful for, and I thank God for these things. So I was writing down all of the things that I was thankful for this week, this morning when I was doing this with my wife. And we have done some amazing things here in Hawaii that I'm extremely grateful for. Helicopter rides, waterfalls, road trip to Hana, which was a great all-day experience, beautiful sunsets. Paradise. Hawaii is truly paradise. And the connection that I have felt with my wife and the connection that we have felt together it just continues to get better and deeper. As every day, every week goes by, we truly are in a space where we're just falling all over in love again and again with each other. But this space that we're in wasn't always the case. And I started to think back, how did this trip become possible? How was this space that I'm currently feeling, how did this come about? And how did Hawaii even come into fruition? So I thought back to when this idea first came into my mind. And it was the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, when I was at a Warrior event going through a fact map training. And if you don't know what fact map training is, go back and listen to podcast. I think it's number 3, where I talk about fear and faith and facts, feelings, focus, fruit, exercise. But go back to that, and then you'll understand the process. But basically, I was going through that process for myself. And in the section of balance, I started to write down what are the current facts as it relates to my relationship with my wife. And at that time, this was about 9 months ago when I wrote this down, there was a lot of things that I was fired up about, because in 2018, we had made a lot of progress, and we started putting in some habits like weekly date nights and creating space for ourselves. We were communicating on a deeper, more vulnerable level than ever at that time when I wrote this. But one of the things that was a fact that was painful, and also something that brought up some feelings of fear, insecurities in our relationship, was that we hadn't taken a vacation by ourselves longer than 2 days in about 6 years. And we have a daughter who's 4 now, son who's 2. And we did what many parents do, which is you put your kids first, and creating space for us usually comes after creating space for our kids. So I wasn't judging the relationship, but I was afraid of the fact that this pattern that we were having wasn't working for me. And as you know from the exercise, the not working is usually what we focus on when we create the targets that we're setting. So one of the targets that I set for myself and for my wife, it was really for me first before I even communicated, was that the impossible game for 2019 in my relationship with my wife was to be in a trip longer than 7 days with no children, and that was going to be just my wife and us, or myself and my wife, and I didn't know how it was going to happen. I knew that I wanted to do a place that we've never been to before and make it a truly special trip of just solo connected time. And this was my impossible game in the beginning of the year. Now, in this frame, when I created this, I hadn't spoken to my wife yet. My wife and I had never been away more than 2 days without the kids. Didn't have a sitter or even a clue as to who would stay with our kids and our dogs for that long. And I wasn't really in a place financially to swing this because, as I've mentioned in prior podcasts, at that time we were living still in my mother's house and hadn't bought the new house that we have this year. So it was definitely an impossible game. And what I mean by impossible game is it's something in my mind that I know is something that would create the relationship or the man that I desire by being able to do it, but it scared me, and it wasn't something that was immediately possible. Did I know how it could be possible? But I wrote it down. So as I am reflecting now, being on this trip, I'm thinking back to that time, and again, reminded of the importance of, number one, being honest with where we are. And the facts at that time, some I was fired up about, and some that I was a bit fucked up about. And one of those was that I hadn't been on a vacation with my wife. And the space that a vacation provides, especially solo, basically to me, it means that our relationship is important. And that doesn't mean that our kids are not important, but we are the glue that keeps our family together. And the deeper my connection is with my wife, the more powerful of parents we're going to be. And we had created a lot of progress through date nights and some of the other habits that we had developed up to that point. But one of the games that we weren't playing the way that I wanted to was the vacation game and creating this space. So I set out to do this as our impossible game. Then I was confronted with how are we going to pull this off, both in the business as well as with my wife and the babysitting and all the other obstacles that come with, and stories specifically that come with taking time away from our kids. Selfish, feeling guilty, the business is too soon, we're not ready, the business isn't going to last without me, my relationship, I'm not sure if this is just being greedy or selfish. Are we just supposed to sacrifice our relationship for our kids? Kids come first, and all the many stories that come with that. Those started to creep in immediately. But the one thing that I did, and I'm grateful that I did, and I have found that this has been the biggest game changer when it comes to accomplishing big shit, is that I committed to doing it before I knew how. So I told my wife this is what I wanted to do, and she got on board with it. She was scared, and I was scared too, and we didn't know how it was going to happen, but we made a commitment to go. And early on in the year, in Q1, we committed by buying tickets to go to Hawaii. Now, we didn't know how it was going to happen. We didn't know what we were going to do when we got here. We didn't know where we were staying. We didn't know who was necessarily going to help us with the kids, the dogs. I didn't know how business was going to handle me being gone. But the one thing we did was we committed. And then we leaned into faith versus fear. So all the stories of fear would have stopped us from actually making this possible. It was faith that we would figure out a way how to make it happen, and that the business would figure out a way how to make it happen, and that I would figure out a way how to make it happen. And we leaned into that. But the first biggest step after creating the vision in my mind was that we committed, even though we didn't know necessarily how. Here, now, being in this space, I am so grateful for that commitment that we made, because over the last few months in business, there's always cycles. You go up and you go down. You have great months, you have bad months, you have great weeks, you have bad days, you have great days. And there were moments just in the last 2 months where we had a bad week and I wanted to cancel the trip. I would have canceled the trip most likely had I not actually bought the tickets and knew that I had made a financial commitment already that I would lose. So we stuck it out and we figured it out. And not only did we figure it out, but my company is having the best month of the year that we've had while I'm on vacation. It's interesting how that works, but I didn't know that that was going to be the case when I first signed up, and when I decided not to cancel the trip because the tickets were already booked. I just had to have faith that it was going to happen and that we committed to doing this even though we didn't know how it was going to happen, but we just did it. So the lesson that I want you to take from this, because had my wife and I not committed the beginning of this year, we wouldn't be sitting here. And this space that we have created this past week has been everything including divine. And for me, it really has solidified a new habit that really puts my relationship with my wife first. My children are always the most important thing to me in my heart. But at the end of the day, when my wife and I are good, we're much better parents. And we're not good, then it's harder to be great parents. So the unity and the love and the connection that my kids get from us is also affected by the connection, unity, and love that we give each other, as well as the same that we give ourselves. So this space is crucial to our family, is what I have established and my wife are recognizing by being here. But again, it wouldn't have happened had we not made the commitment first and then figured it out afterwards. So my question or ask for you from this podcast and this lesson is, what in your life have you been thinking about doing that scares the shit out of you, but you haven't actually made a commitment? Is that running a marathon, a Spartan race, something in your body? Is it something spiritually, a spiritual retreat, a spiritual course? Is it a relationship thing? Is it a trip, maybe with a loved one, somebody you haven't connected with in a long time? Is it something in business, a new marketing opportunity, a new business idea, a new business move, and something you've just been putting off because you keep trying to figure out how you're going to make it happen because you're afraid, versus just making a commitment and having the faith to take a jump? So today, I'm going to ask you, it doesn't take much other than courage to make a commitment, but make a commitment to make a decision to go without figuring out how you're going to make that happen. So if that's something in your body, go out and register for something today. Don't figure out how you're going to train for it, how it's going to happen, and all the details. Make a commitment first and then go in whatever area of your life you know that's the place you need to create the most expansion. So thank you for listening to today's podcast. As always, please rate and review the show as it helps with rankings. Also, if this show has connected with you and given you something of value, please take the time to share it, whether on your social media or with somebody that you think can benefit from this message. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.